The new co-main event for March 8th, UFC 313 here in Las Vegas, is going to be Gaethje versus Fiziev. Gaethje, I don't know how much I got to sell Gaethje to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's very different. I think he's got some of the best striking skills, and he's one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC at this weight class. Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar. I think I got to, really control his feet and control the pace. And
we have a replacement. UFC 313 goes down. Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje was supposed to happen. It was going to be a bloodbath. It was going to be a guaranteed bloodbath. But short notice, Rafael Fiziev is back in it.
Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, that's not happening anymore. Preparing for a mixed martial arts fight is very tough, and Dan Hooker, one of the toughest out there, went out there, broke his hand, bust his paw, took it all with a smile on his face, to be honest. And fair play to Dan Hooker.
Yeah, oh man, I was just sparring last night, just as I do, just letting some hooks go, yeah. Just throwing some bombs down range, and yeah, just caught one of the boys on the top of the dome with my knuckle, and yeah.
Dana White has announced that Rafael Fiziev will replace Dan Hooker to fight Justin Gaethje at UFC 313's co-main event. But ultimately, that didn't affect Justin Gaethje's mindset. He called Rafael Fiziev one of the best strikers in the UFC and plans to control the pace by using his footwork and trusting his cardio to outlast him over 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's very different. I think he's got some of the best striking skills, and he's one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC at this weight class. Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar. I think I got to, really control his feet and control the pace, and trusting my cardio. I've been working so hard, and I think, my confidence in my ability to sprint for 15 minutes is going to be a huge factor here.
Gaethje admitted he wasn't aggressive enough in past fights, noting that champions move forward most of the time. He aims to be more forward moving, believing his previous cautious approach didn't lead to the success he sought.
I think I fell into a tendency to not move forward as much as I should in this sport, and if you look at the champions, they're moving forward 70-80% of the time, and I think that has to be implemented if you want to be successful in this sport. And I think that's where I kind of through Chandler and Fiziev, I kind of found success with being safer, and ultimately that's not the answer.
Rafael Fiziev, who has fought Justin Gaethje before, sent a strong warning ahead of their rematch, telling Gaethje to be ready as he's coming fully prepared this time.
Justin, are you ready, bro? Very good day in the office, and a Saturday very good day in the kitchen.
Moreover, Justin Gaethje mentioned that if you watch his past fights in the World Series of Fighting, you'll see a more refined version of himself now. He believes his skills have significantly improved since those days, and that's his mindset heading into the fight with Rafael Fiziev.
If you watch the World Series of Fighting, Gaethje, that's who you're gonna see with but just more refined. I obviously have much better skills than I did in those days.
Chael Sonnen noted that while Gaethje thrives in dangerous situations, the rematch with Fiziev is a significant challenge. He emphasized that Fiziev now has a major opportunity in the main event, whereas Gaethje's experience alone won't guarantee victory against a more refined opponent.
It's a very big fight. Justin Gaethje said it best. Justin Gaethje put out a tweet, and he was just talking about himself, and he said, to step in against an elite striker on short notice is a very dangerous game. Turns out Gaethje likes to play very dangerous games, but...
Sonnen also recalled their first fight in England, where Gaethje was the veteran and Fiziev was on the rise. He pointed out that in the rematch, Fiziev is now a more formidable and recognized fighter, making the challenge much tougher for Gaethje.
The first time those guys were asked to fight, because don't forget this is a rematch, and the first time that fight got made, it was very clear that Justin Gaethje was getting called to do the job. He was more of a veteran. Fiziev was more of his way up. This is, and this again, I'm going back to the first time that they fought over in England. This is a massive opportunity and a main event spot for Fiziev. Believe it or not, with the risk of sounding rude, it was a step down for Gaethje.
Tim Welch expressed excitement for the rematch between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev at UFC 313, calling it a bloodbath and a banger. He emphasized the intensity of the 5-round co-main event and stated fans are in for a real treat with such a high-stakes fight on short notice.
Bloodbath. I'm fired up. I'm fired up for this war, ladies and gentlemen. We're in for a real treat. UFC 313, and we got a banger of a card. We got a banger of a card, especially when these guys take these short notice fights like this. If this is going to be a 5-round co-main event, it's going to be serious. It's going to be serious. We're in for a real treat.
However, on Tuesday, news broke that Hooker is out of his scheduled 5-round co-main event fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 313 next Saturday.
Be honest,
one of these hands don't look like the other.
Dan Hooker revealed that he injured his hand while sparring, explaining that he landed a hook on his opponent's head, which caused a fracture. He initially didn't think much of it, but after getting a CT scan, doctors confirmed the injury.
one of the paws is not doing so well.
Look, talk us through it. What has happened in training, Dan Hooker?
Yeah, oh man, I was just sparring last night. Just as I do, just letting some hooks go,
Yeah.
just throwing some bombs down range, and yeah, just caught one of the boys on the top of the dome with my knuckle, and yeah, and then I didn't think too much of it. And then, but they sent me off to get a CT scan. Had a little CT scan, and they told me that my hand is fractured. So yeah.
Daniel Cormier noted that Dan Hooker's injury must be serious, as he was riding momentum from recent wins, particularly his impressive victory over Mats Gamrot, which had silenced doubts about his career.
First off, let's talk about Dan Hooker. For Dan Hooker to pull out of this fight, the injury or whatever happened to him must be so significant, because he has to understand and recognize that with the wave that he's riding, with the momentum that he's gained, with the victories that he's had back to back, none being more impressive than his fight with Matias Gamrot last year, where he got that decision and looked like an absolute Terminator. To get the Justin Gaethje booking for a guy like that, who very shortly ago, honestly, we were calling for his retirement. I thought that Dan Hooker was done. He was losing. He seemed to be not improving anymore. Dude changed his hair, got some brand new tattoos, and turned into a whole new fighter.
Daniel Cormier acknowledged the importance of the fight to Dan Hooker, but confirmed that Justin Gaethje will still be fighting as planned.
But I will keep you guys in the loop as long as I can try to figure out what's going on with Dan Hooker. Because again, I know how important this fight was to him.
Michael Bisping praised Dan Hooker's toughness after he broke his hand during training, noting that Hooker remained positive and didn't feel sorry for himself, instead laughing off the injury and accepting it as part of the fight preparation process.
Preparing for a mixed martial arts fight is very tough, and Dan Hooker, one of the toughest out there, went out there, broke his hand, busted his paw, took it over with a smile on his face, to be honest. And fair play to Dan Hooker. Didn't get upset, didn't feel sorry for himself. He wasn't crying about it, he was laughing about it. It's like, breaks. This is what happens when you get ready for an MMA fight.
Michael Bisping acknowledged the difficulty of MMA training, emphasizing that preparing for a fight is often harder than the fight itself. He expressed his anticipation for Dan Hooker's return to the octagon after his setback.
Fighting in MMA is very hard. Training for a fight is even harder than the fight. And getting to the fight is often half of the battle. And that battle was lost by Dan Hooker. And I can't wait to see him back in there.
So what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about the replacement? What do you expect from Rafael Fiziev in the rematch with Gaethje? Share your thoughts in the comment section and make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Also check out other videos.